The national second tier is coming in 2025. It's not in the form that we were told, but in the latest cruel adaptation of Australian football irony, it was exactly what we expected. Home and away is out, a Champions League format is in, at least for the time being, as FA and clubs look to present the NST shop window out into the public eye to inspire the final collection of teams required to ensure a sustainable league format. It should just be a stopgap, but we've seen a version of this competition before. Will the promise of something greater lying beyond be enough to sustain it longer than its predecessor? We'll walk you through everything we've learnt today, and then it's round 3 of the A-League, the ins and outs in our weekend look before venturing out into Asia for the AFC Awards, and Kevin Muscat looking to secure a Chinese Super League title on this episode of Round Ball Australia. My name is Lachlan Avil, and joining me tonight is Jacob Stevens. Jacob, it just goes one of these episodes where there's no football in this week. It's when all the news pops up, eh?
It's always these Friday releases where we just get the midweek news. It goes crazy, and then we've just got stuff to talk about for hours on end. So, long may it continue, I guess, because it makes things easy for us because we don't have to think about things to talk about.
Yes, that is true. Christian Montegan, hello. I get the feeling we could talk about this one for a fair while.
Yeah, shout out to Jacob on the previous podcast for getting this prediction right. He said, something crazy will pop up when we have got nothing to talk about, and we've got the rundown sorted, and last minute this pops up. So can't wait to get into it.
And we've brought in a specialist tonight as well on late notice. Neal Symons, welcome in, mate. Our NPL NST specialist on the show here.
It's a very, very high praise from you, Lockie. Really appreciate
it. We're very glad to have you here because, of course, the big news that dropped on Thursday afternoon is that Football Australia have confirmed that an altered version of the national second-tier competition will commence in October of 2025. They and the clubs are committing hard to that deadline. When the 8 foundation clubs were announced almost a year ago now, a home and away league format was promised with 2 or 4 additional teams to be found in a subsequent RFP process. That was unsuccessful and resulted in Football Australia delaying public announcements on the league whilst they consulted with the foundation clubs on a path forwards. And today we know now that path, at least for 2025, is a Champions League format at the conclusion of the clubs' respective NPL seasons. The competition will be 16 teams, 8 of which are the confirmed inaugural NST sides, plus 8 NPL premiers from the various member federation competitions. Those member feds include Northern New South Wales, but not Football NT. They'll be split up into 4 groups of 4 teams for a home and away group phase. The top 2 then progress into the quarterfinals for a total of 9 match days. Competition will run from October through December to compete directly with the A-Leagues, which is an interesting point, with clubs obviously holding their NPL status through the winter. Now, Neal, probably the key point out of this whole release is this quote here saying a standalone home and away league remains a key strategic goal, and once minimum thresholds are achieved, Football Australia aims to expand and evolve the competition format further. It remains a key strategic objective to establish a standalone NST home and away league competition as soon as the minimum threshold is secured. So they're telling us this is a path to get to where we want to be, but we don't quite know how long the path is.
Yeah, I think it's very much expected, this announcement from Football Australia. The clubs, from what I understand, have been recruiting this season as per usual, as per its NPL season, all systems go, point system in place, etc. And unlike last year where there was a lot of, I think clubs only started re-signing players in November after the NST was announced. Most clubs have finalized their squads already, so this won't change anything in that respect. But I think many clubs have released statements. Some are more keen than others, and it's pretty obvious the clubs who aren't happy. But I'm sure we'll get into that.
When we put this into the larger context, Neal, of this whole NST process, it clearly isn't where we want to be. We wanted this home and away league format. I think that's pretty unanimously agreed upon. But is there an admission there, at least from the clubs, or maybe there isn't, I'm not sure, that this is perhaps a necessary evil if, we want to get to where we want to be?
I think it's a case of walking before you can run, really. I think fundamentally six clubs aren't financially able to commit to this, which is fair enough. Out of the 14 that have been presented, which includes Gold Coast United, we are back. We are back. We are absolutely back. Maybe this could. I think this is a really good means to test the waters, in some way, especially over summer. There's no winter sport. Especially clubs like South Melbourne can really galvanise their supporter base, and also Preston Lions to an extent from a Victorian standpoint, obviously. But yeah, I've got a lot of questions in practicality, especially the Premier's situation. New South Wales, we've got what 5 teams. So what if the 5 foundation clubs finish first, second, third, fourth, and fifth?
Yeah.
And then you have, I don't know, like Rockdale, Illingdon finishing 6th, and hey, you're in the NST now. Like, I don't know. To me, it's just I've got many questions. I understand FA can be very unclear here, and they've got a year to build this. So I think it's all systems go for them now, trying to secure sponsorship and a TV rights partner. Well, that might be 10 already. We don't know, but we'll see.
Christian, of course, the irony of this whole situation is that we were here almost 12 months ago exactly talking about the home and away league phase, and that how Football Australia were clever to give themselves that extra runway to get them set up for that version of the competition. But instead, we're sitting here talking about a different version.
Yeah, and I agree with Neil that it's about testing the waters at the end of the day. Just, let it flow, let's see how it plays out, because the worst case scenario is, putting yourself in the deep end, it doesn't work out and you're going back to square one. So I think, from all parties concerned, I know a lot of clubs aren't happy about the group stage format. I completely understand about that, but at the same time, we just need to get this thing off the ground and, give it a few seasons just to see where it can take you. But and then got the other side of it where there's pessimism to think, if that threshold that Football Australia said, I think was the end of that statement, if clubs don't meet that, what if they never meet that threshold and it just continues this Champions League format group stage? I mean, where do you go from there? I think that's the big concern for these clubs moving forward. And, do you have to lower the threshold after a few years if clubs can't, if they're not financially viable, or they're not financially backed in a certain way? So there's so many different questions that have to be answered. But, in the meantime, I just think you just have to be happy that something is finally getting off the ground, because there was so much angst and frustration that, it was just sort of ticking over, and there was just excuse after excuse. And finally, it just seems that, we can finally get started.
Yeah, so as part of this announcement, as well, as Neil alluded to, Football Australia confirmed that during the previous RFP process, they identified 14 clubs that passed the technical elements of the process, 8 of which we know, 6 of which were unable to meet the mandatory financial requirements to play in the standalone home and away competition, at least by the June deadline this year. Those 6 clubs are Adelaide City, Caroline Springs, George Cross, Gold Coast United, Gungahlin. What is that? Gungahlin?
It is Gungahlin. It is Gungahlin United.
Gungahlin United, South Hobart FC, and Sunshine Coast FC. So, Jacob, Football Australia are going to conduct a third RFP process, I guess, in the coming months and year, targeting clubs outside of that initial expression of interest process. So the search continues to find these clubs. Neil looks a bit bemused with his hands in the air. If the goalposts haven't shifted from a year ago today, then we believe that 10 teams is the minimum requirement. Perhaps it's more than that now. But, the search continues.
I love Neil's exasperated expressions there, because it perfectly sums it up. They're going to look for teams that aren't interested in joining their league to join their league. Weren't
It's not that. But it's sort of the case of just like how many RFP phases do we really need? I think if this RFP phase can be taken out maybe now, or towards after the NST is in its first form next year, I think we need to see a product before I think people can really express interest. Because it's all well and good to say this could be a national competition, but how's it going to look on TV? What's the advertising going to look like? What's the media coverage going to look like? I think there's a big aura of hesitation here to do that, because unlike the A-League's formation in 2005, it's a case of this is going to be a semi-professional competition It doesn't really appeal to, your millionaire and billionaire investors. And these are community clubs at the end of the day.
Yeah.
So it's hard to attract sponsorship when we've had nothing like this before in Australia, ever. And in Australia, to be honest, across all sports, to be frank. And the VFL doesn't count. I don't want to talk about that, but seriously.
But no, I mean, what you're talking about there, though, is as well, this we need to see what the product is before teams are going to be interested in joining up. And sort of that's been the problem in the build up to this announcement anyway, is that the teams have had this idea of what they want. Football Australia had an idea of what they think is feasible. It doesn't quite fit with what some of the clubs want. We've seen these statements come out from clubs that aren't happy with the way that things have gone. We've seen statements from, the players' union saying, well, we've not been consulted the whole way through. Like, it just seems like there's been a whole lot of miscommunication, and that itself is a bad sign, right? Like, if it's clear that communication has been scrambled throughout, I mean, I don't think it matters what the product at the end of the day is, because there's still going to be an air of cautiousness, I think, from other clubs that aren't involved to start with, in going, okay, there's something out there now. There's at least a competition there, but do we trust that it's even going to last, more than a couple of seasons? Like, because from everything that we've seen so far, it just seems that there's all these different sides at play that seem to have conflicting opinions on what's needed or wanted and what their vision for it is. I don't know if, maybe I'm completely wrong on that, Neal, but at least that's what it seems like from a sort of outsider's perspective.
I would hope that you're wrong. I would hope that you're wrong, but I think there's a lot of truth in what you're saying. I think I view it under the lens of, look, Football Australia have given the NST the best chance to succeed with this format. Let's be honest. I know it's being run with the A-League, but you've got no footy, got no NRL, got nothing to compete with it except the A-League. That's another point of discussion I want to go down. Very awkward conversations with the APL, I assume now. How do you fix your next season? Because it's a weird situation. You've got a lot of NSL folk that left their clubs to support A-League clubs. Got a lot of people that support both. We can see that from the demographic going to these cup games, especially South Melbourne. That's going to be a very intriguing discussion to have. Another thing to have is, I think Football Australia here of, look, you have a minimum of 6 games for all these clubs. So like the giant clubs, let's say the Souths, the Prestons, I wouldn't say Arpia, but the Sydney Uniteds of the world, they will have the opportunity now to get behind one club. A lot of these other people play for different clubs, like Northcote City, Brunswick City, Oakley Cannons, Box Hill United, Altona East Phoenix, Yarraville, all in Melbourne. You would have combined all of them together to go and support South Melbourne. That's what they did in the NSL. So I'm inclined to think that there's like that similar galvanization, if that's even a word, for this competition. I would hope so. Seeing the atmosphere, the raucous atmosphere. I was on the pitch for the South Arthur game, working for South, and looking at that stand, I'm like, this is crazy, man. Like, if this is what we're gonna get next year, then like, take my money, please. And I'm not sure if any of you went to the Preston South game in May, but genuinely the best footballing atmosphere I've experienced, besides a grand final or something, or a Melbourne derby in Melbourne.
So that's the heights that we all want to get to, right? That was the game that was pitched as the example of what we could create, and I think that still stands as well. On the idea of overlapping A-Leagues and NST, is there, we talk about this in the A-Leagues all the time in terms of like fixtures running over the top of each other. And we say, well, if we do actually want to get to 16, 18, 20 teams, well, then games are going to be played over each other anyway. Do we have to have the same opinion on perhaps the NST? Like 20 years down the line, if we do actually get this pyramid that we want, well, then hopefully the leagues are playing at the same time. There's going to be overlap anyway. Is it just something that we have to deal with at some point anyway?
Yeah, I think so. I think there'll be a lot of consultation between the two because, in some way you want to give the best chance for Melbourne footballing folk to get their footballing fix. I do think it'll be a little bit overwhelming for some people to have this much football on at the same time. Elite level football, should I say? I would hate for there to be a situation where there's a Melbourne Victory home game scheduled on the same day as like a South Melbourne home game, for example. Or, I would hate for that to happen. It's inevitable though. And another thing I want to point to is, I know it's a bit off topic, but like these players are going to be training for 13 months, guys. Like from next month, like that's not normal for any footballer, let alone semi professionals. And South Melbourne played 38 games. I know I keep going to them, but they're the best example of what we have in Victoria. They played 38 games this season, including cups. You're telling me they have to back up and play another 6 or 7 or 8 or 9 potentially? 45 games for a semi-professional club. Like, that's ridiculous. And that will be a reality, or a distinct reality for many who are on semi-professional wages. Like,
but I think, that's how it works in England, though, right? Like, obviously there's all the talk from
training for 13 months.
Not the training, not the training for 13 months, because the competitions are organised normally over there. But the whole playing a lot of games. I mean, there are semi-professional sides that play over 60 games a season in England, and that's just sort of part and parcel of it, because there's so many competitions, and you want to stay in competitions as late as you can and have a chance to win things. You always hear the complaints from the top teams when they have to play 40 or whatever, and it's like there are clubs that do a lot worse. But no, it's that extended period of time because of the scheduling of the competitions that's the big problem. That having it in the summer, while it makes sense, like you were saying, because it doesn't have to compete with other codes, it only has to compete with the direct rival in the A-League. It does then mean, it's literally non-stop. Like they don't really get a chance to recoup.
There's no chance to breathe here. And like, look, I don't have a problem. I don't, from a media perspective, like we love it. The more football to talk about, the better. I say the more football to attend, the better. But like we will see a lot of these matches, these dream matchups next year in the NPL. South will play Preston twice at least, which will be exciting for many. And I think this is going to change the approach of many other sides who are still looking to recruit. But at the same time, by the same token, I think when it comes to the interaction with the A-League, I'm very intrigued to see as to what those discussions will look like if the A-League. I don't think they'll see it as a threat. You can't work collaboratively with these NPL clubs in a way that you think you could, due to the fact that a lot of these A-League clubs a lot of these NPL clubs are very disenfranchised and they're hesitant to do so. So I don't think there'll be that level of consultation, but I think, if I were the A-League, I wouldn't be stressed or threatened at all. I think I view this as actually a means to enhance the A-League as a whole, to be honest with you.
We do know that over the past 6 to 12 months that the relationship between Football Australia and the A-Leagues has improved significantly. So hopefully that continues and that this isn't a rift in that department. I think what we've stumbled onto in the last few minutes and made really self-evident, Christian, is that this version of the competition, an NST competition that we have with the Champions League format in the time of year, running off the NPL season in a semi-professional format, it's not sustainable long-term, and it's not supposed to be. It is designed to be a bridge between where we are now and a home and away NST competition. We've had these 8 inaugural clubs that have already made financial contributions, like they've really put their neck out on the lines here. And, that's part of them being guaranteed invitations as well to this tournament. And so this really feels like to me as the bare minimum that we can do to keep everyone somewhat happy. I know not everyone is happy, but keep things moving forward and just get them to where we want to be.
Well, you're right that there has to be a cutoff at some point, doesn't it? Because it's not sustainable. But when do we reach that point, right? I mean, are we at a stage where we see ourselves in 5 years' time and we're still in the same position? And, do you still continue with it? Because like Neal mentioned before, South played 38 games last season just passed. And if you're going to add another 6 games onto a Champions League format, does that dilute the product? Will that make, for worse viewing? Or because they are semi-professional clubs at the end of the day. So, they're not conditioned the best as an A-League club would be, for example. So, these are all questions that need to come to the surface. Otherwise, if they're not answered within the next 2 to 3 years, then, Football Australia sat there pondering, their next move, and it could all die, basically, which we don't want. But, at the same time, there just needs to be a clear structure put in place, because you don't want to get to a stage where, 3 seasons time, you're just stuck in, going around in circles. So that's my one concern about it, because, the Champions League format, great way to start, makes most people happy. But, at the same time, you want to see some clear continuity and some development at the same time.
Neal, I want to ask you if you think this version of the competition would even survive for 5 years, because we've seen the NPL National Final Series before, and that's gone down, right? And I just wonder, can you talk to maybe the similarities and differences between the proposed NST and that competition?
Well, the NPL National Finals were held in a location at the end of the season. The last one we had was in 2019. It did not die because of, I guess, I don't know, factors relating to the interest, but it was actually COVID. But nonetheless, there was like it was held in like the same location every year, the national finals. It was not appetizing for people to, like, why would you play Blacktown City versus Bayswater City in Perth? Sorry, to be fair, Bayswater are a Perth team, but like playing, I don't know, Heidelberg United versus Brisbane Strikers at Perry Park. I don't think it's the most appetizing thing. It's like straight knockouts, but like with more teams provides more excitement, I guess. And it also wasn't broadcast correctly, and like now we've got accessibility everywhere, and I'm sure that Football Australia's primary goal in this next year is to commercialize this thing, get sponsors on board, because it will attract interest at the end of the day. And I think the choice of broadcast, I've heard that it's possibly been packaged with the other rights for the Socceroos and Matildas.
Yeah,
but honestly,
that was definitely the intention by Football Australia at the start.
Yeah, I would love for them to just go to market and just. I'm sure we all want it to be on SBS, but like I would love for let's say like you put a match on SBS Viceland, like the match of the week on SBS Viceland, and put the rest on SBS On Demand or something. But like this stuff just shouldn't be treated as like the Australia Cup, where like, wow, it's going to be on 10 play the entire time. Like this is more than that. I'm going to be honest with you. It has tangible meaning, and if this has to be a success, then Football Australia have to ensure that this first one is run correctly and run in a manner where the foundation clubs and the premier clubs that come in and the invited clubs that they're destination clubs for players wanting to go to the NPL. Because at the end of the day, like, we want these clubs to grow, and it's going to take a lot of time. Some clubs are ready. 8 clubs are ready to go with the full home and away. If we get it up to 2 more, I'd say run with it. Let's go.
Do you really think that broadcast situation is viable, though, in a situation where we can only get 2 A-League games on TV every week? Men's, I should say.
Even if you put it on 10 each or something. Like that's a third channel. Put it on 10 each. They put the NBL on 10 each. Why can't they put the NST on 10 each? Like I think Football Australia will want to have these discussions, and I know SBS have been leading more into the footballing market recently with picking up the South American qualifiers, and also I think they've just put the whole FIFA Plus platform onto SBS On Demand, which is great as well. So why not? If you really want to lean into the whole nostalgia kick of the NSL, this is the way to do it. Honestly, just pander to what some of the old folk would know and recognize, and just put it on SBS. But obviously that's a pipe dream, and it's probably not going to happen. But I do think there needs to be an alternative, because the demographic of these NPL supporters it's a lot older than A-League games. As a whole, like you see plenty of people, just hanging out in the club rooms before the game and stuff. Like it's a very different feel. And I think what failed with NPL TV especially was that it was a streaming focused platform, and it was very hard to access. Like people need to be able to access this as seamlessly as possible. Like YouTube for the NPL is going well because it's YouTube. Like everyone knows YouTube. But like you can't expect someone to make up a 10-player account and then log into it and look for the sports section. Like it's hard. Like us as young people, we can do that, but it's not exactly easy for everyone else. So I think accessibility is the most important thing. Put it on TV and see where it goes, in my opinion. But the last thing I want to do is make this paywall. The last thing you should do is paywall it, because that would be absolute suicide.
Jacob, one last little nugget from your neck of the woods. There was a Channel 7 news package the other day on Fabio Cannavaro helping launch Adelaide City's new club logo. It's got the Italian flag on it. It looks very nice. Yeah. Anyway, that report ended with this quote: Adelaide City is expected to be part of Football Australia's national second division, earmarked to begin in 2026. So someone has told someone in there
It's
that
not.
Adelaide
It's not
City
surprising.
believe that they will be
SA,
in the full version.
Yeah, in SA, everybody in the football scene knows everybody, and the fact that that came out is not too. I mean, it's surprising that it was put out there, but the fact that people started to know about it isn't particularly surprising, at least to me, because yeah, it's so. I mean, the football family in Australia is small, and you boil it down to just South Australia and specifically Adelaide, and it's like you know one person and you know everybody, like you know Antonis and he knows everybody else and everybody knows him, and so it's like it's just crazy like that. And so the fact that these sorts of things can spread so quickly and so easily, it's not massively surprising. But what is surprising is that Channel 7 were like, yeah, let's run with it, let's go, let's put it out there. So I guess we'll see exactly how correct they are with that. Obviously, as you mentioned before, Adelaide City were one of the clubs identified by the FA as having met the financial threshold thing in
technical.
The technical one in this RFP phase. So they're certainly in there, but I guess we'll see. But it's a pretty funny thing to see.
Yeah, fascinating. I think that'll do on the NST. Neil, we know you're on a clock, so one last question before you leave us tonight. There's been a couple of stories coming out of Queensland in the last week or so. A couple of clubs have come out in defiance against FQ on a decision of a new strategic partnership with Brisbane Roar, is my understanding, in terms of putting their own academy teams in competitions. Can you give us a little bit of a lowdown of the situation there?
Oh, I think it's put it down to they're trying to steal talent. Clubs don't like doing talent stolen. And look, I think it's we had the age-old discussion here in Victoria. Should the A-League youth sides be in the VPL and NPL? I think it's a discussion that will never go away. And obviously, I'm not sure if you guys remember, about maybe 2 years ago, they as in Brisbane Roar, removed all their academy teams. So FQ were like, oh yeah, we'll pick that up. Let's go. So yeah, I can't say I'm exactly surprised. Is it bad? Yeah. Do I understand it? Of course, but I think there's always going to be this discussion. NPL clubs can develop players. I mean, look at Dylan Leonard, for example, like playing for the Sharks as a 15-year-old last year and started for Western United last week. Like, there are clubs that can develop players in the NPL, but of course we know that there's been a lot of success with the youth side. So yeah, I can't say I'm exactly surprised, but the clubs have absolutely got a right to be upset. And some very strongly worded statements. I haven't seen that much of a groundswell of support or getting behind a decision in a negative way that we've seen there. So, but also I must actually add, there was, I believe there was a delay on this announcement for the NST, because if you do remember, Football Queensland were like very much against like the whole concept of this even happening. So like, I think that they're warming up to it a lot now, and I think that roadblock is slowly being watered down, which is great. I think to have Football Queensland representation and Gold Coast United, hopefully, and it would be incredible. And we'll just hopefully, you know what, if Gold Coast United are in the NST, they've got to bring back Michael Thwaite, Jake Barker-Dash, Ben, Mitch Cooper, everyone. I'm talking everyone. But I think it's trouble in paradise. But I guess there's also a silver lining to everything.
Of course, part of that whole saga with Football Queensland as well is that Sunshine Coast had their teams removed from FQ competition
and playing in the UK.
Yes,
sure
playing
you've
in the
seen
UK.
That.
That's a whole different.
No, it's actually happening. Like, there's genuinely a full-time academy there.
I'm
good?
very well aware.
I think it's the most unique thing we've ever seen, to be honest. And must say, excellent graphics as well. Pretty sick.
They it's going to be pretty hard for them to join the new NST now that they don't have a men's team. A bit tricky. Neal, thank you very much for coming on tonight. We appreciate you giving us your expertise in this subject. Of course, many of our viewers are regular A-League fans. Do you want to talk to us a little bit about your new A-League project as well?
Yeah, so Project Collective, we put together a very intriguing rights proposition for the A-League, and yeah, the Isuzu Ute A-League, should I call it? And,
Got to have the sponsors in there.
Yeah.
Contractually,
it's
yes.
Every time I've said it, I've been drilled in my head so much. No, but yeah.
Well, they aren't paying us, so you can be quiet.
No, we're very, very happy to have partnered with the APL to deliver the product on radio, which is great. And yeah, it's not something that we've seen in quite some time. So yeah, the collective will be broadcasting essentially basically all Melbourne-based matches and Sydney-based matches for the season. You can catch us on the collective AU. That's with the 0 for the O. And also you can catch us on the collectiveau.net and also on the Mixlr app. This weekend, I'll just plug the games for this weekend because I feel like I should.
Yeah,
Got 5 games. Got the A-League Women's Opener tomorrow night. Tonight you'll hear it. Western United versus Wellington. We've got the Mariners doubleheader, both women's and men's. Victory against MacArthur and Western United against Melbourne City on Monday. And tickets got released for that yesterday. So hope to see a good crowd. I won't be on any of those games, but we've got a great call team, so it should be good.
Very nice. Thanks, Neal. Thanks for coming on.
No worries, thank you.
All right, the teams are in for round 3 of the A-League. Here are some of the highlights. Of course, we're going to go to the big New Zealand derby. 2 big inclusions for Wellington. Marco Rojas and Paulo Retre are both in the side. But headline, Jacob, no Alex Rufo, the skipper, the base of midfield, the pivot, the crux, the fulcrum, not in the team this week for the biggest game.
Huge loss. That is massive because he has been so reliable for them. He was so important for them last season. To lose, just the beating heart of the side almost. It's a huge loss. And even though, perhaps in attack he wasn't, the big influence that, some players are, it's still, when you're losing your best central midfielder, that's a massive part of everything that you're trying to do gone. It's a massive part of your defending on. It's a massive part of your build-up gone. Yeah, it cannot be understated how big and out that is. And the fact, obviously, that he is the captain. So, you're losing the leadership and the experience. And for a game like this as well, it's not like they're, playing against Brisbane or Western United or something. It's like this is the biggest game that they're going to have this season, arguably. Unless they go on and make the final or something, but to not have your captain and your central midfielder and the guy that you're looking towards there, that's huge.
Haven't you seen the Ballon d'Or? Central midfielders are more important than forwards nowadays.
That's very true. Well, I mean, especially for Wellington, right? Rufer is just, such a big part of what they're trying to do.
All right, some of the other highlights. Sydney FC confirmed no Lolly or Costa. They do get Max Burgess back from suspension. George Clark with AAP was quoting Ufuk Talay saying that Costa and Lolly hopefully should be back within a week, so not too long for them. But Corey Holman will be out a little longer with his ankle. Of course, they're going up against Brisbane on Friday night, who lose Nisa Acosta through injury, who was one of the exciting prospects out of round 1, really. Adelaide lose Jordan Elsey, of course, to injury. Roderick Miranda comes back from suspension for victory. Christian, what are the standouts in that little bunch that will make the biggest impact, do you think?
Well, in terms of the outs, I'm going to say that Sydney, Joe, Costa and Lolly, that's going to be massive to see where that at. I'm going to touch on it a bit more with our other segment coming up, but that's going to be massive because I think, it just shows where this Sydney side are without those two. I know it's against Brisbane Roar. They weren't impressive against Auckland in the opening game, but at the same time, away from home, can they, bounce back, especially after 97th minute defeat against Auckland from last week? Can they bounce back and, without their 2-star players, let's face it, can they bounce back from adversity and get the 3 points? So that's, going to be a really burning topic. And then in terms of the ends, it has to be Miranda for me. I thought in that second half, Victory's defense it slowed down a bit. I know I touched on it at halftime. You're 3-0 up. You're going to, what's the word? You're not going to bring out the same intensity as you would in terms of, being 1-0 down or 0-0. So if you've got a 3-0 advantage, it's going to be obviously different. But I think Miranda gives more stability at the back. Obviously the captain of the team. So I'm expecting leadership against a MacArthur side who obviously beat Victory at the Australia Cup final a few weeks ago, so Victory will be out for revenge, and yeah, Miranda's going to be a huge part of that.
The squads for Western United and City will be announced on Sunday afternoon. Of course, that game is on Monday with the public holiday. But we do know now that Aziz Bayic has been suspended for 2 matches for his stamp on Nikos Virgos. It seems pretty fair. In terms of the question of why VAR didn't pick it up on the night, which was one that we asked on Monday, Paul Williams is reporting that John Moss made a statement. He's the new head of referees. Quote, in the case of the Bayic incident, the VAR ultimately misjudged the level of contact. This was an isolated error in an otherwise strong performance from by the VAR on the night.
Very interesting.
Misjudged the level of contact.
Very.
It's that's an interesting way of putting it. If you just said, "Oh, they just missed it completely," you go, "Okay." Sometimes you do miss things, right? Even though it's VAR and it's supposed to be all overseeing. Okay, maybe I can, there was that grand final where it just conveniently stopped working for 30 seconds, right? Like that sort of stuff can happen. But to say that they misjudged the level of contact, that's a human error thing. That means that, and then to be proven then wrong by the match review panel who have now said that, no, it's going to be a 2-match suspension. That's not like a small little thing to make, like the difference between a yellow card or no card. That's a difference between no card and a 2-match suspension. Like that's a big misjudgment of the level of contact.
So you boys don't think that the ref should have went to the monitor and
here we go.
No, absolutely not.
No, you still don't.
Not unless it was recommended by the VAR.
But it was a human error, wasn't it?
Well, so VAR were not going to recommend it anyway because they didn't think that there was enough there.
Okay, let's not go.
And look, we have this MRP in place, so if things like this do get missed, they can go back retrospectively.
But in terms of the game, another 45 minutes, they could have been down to 10 men. City. So it changed the complex of the game.
Christian. They missed it.
But it changed the complex of the game.
Still lost.
They still lost. Exactly.
There's going to be errors absolutely anywhere. Anyway, the MRP comes in, gives him the punishment. Good process, lads. Let's go to our weekend look. Christian, give me a burning question.
So I just touched on it recently. Who are Sydney without Costa and Lolly? This is going to be big for me because, I don't see Sydney losing. I don't see them winning either. I tipped a draw for this one. I just think it's Suncorp, Brisbane's first home game of the season. They're going to be really up for this. And do Sydney have the leaders there, available to really, stamp their authority without their 2 stars? Can they make a statement? Because, Sydney's defence, besides Ryan Grant and 1 or 2 others, it is a pretty young defensive, Popovic being one of them. So, like I said, do they have that leadership there without those 2, to get the 3 points? They maybe do. They might have the quality there. We still know they've got a heap ton of quality there and talent, which should get them over the line, you'd think. But if they don't get the 3 points, then I think a couple of questions will be asked as to do they have the depth as opposed to did we think they did at the start of the season?
Jacob?
Mine is, have City learnt their lesson from the derby and specifically with their rest defence and their defensive structure? Because that was really the big issue with the first goal. It was the key cause for the build-up in the second goal that they conceded. It was something you pointed out to me, Lockie. You said, have you figured out what you're going to do for talking tactics? City and their rest defence, and you were spot on because it was really not very good. And if you want to know a bit more about it, go and read the Talking Tactics article I did for the Round Ball website. But essentially, it just the way that they set themselves up in build up does not work cohesively with the way that they want to try and defend, and it's because their fullbacks are too high and too wide, and it just leaves way too much space, and it isolates the centre backs who aren't strong enough individually on their own to be able to deal with attacking threats, and that's where Victory just pounced on it, and because they could isolate those centre backs and they could exploit the space, it was just far too easy for them. So it was a big wake up call for City. Hopefully it's something that Vidmar and his team will have looked at and addressed and focused on, because there are changes that they do need to make to their rest defense, because it just simply was not good enough against the Victory. And basically any team in this league is going to look to try and counter in the fashion that the Victory did, right? It's a very transitional league, we know that, and City leave themselves too open in transition with the way that they're set up. So it's something that they're going to have to change, and I wonder if they have learnt their lesson, and I guess we're going to find out.
Yes, absolutely. We will find out. My burning question is, will there be any bite actually on the pitch in the Kiwi Classico on the weekend. They've done really well off the field in terms of the marketing and the promotion and the off the field kind of jabs and jibes between the two clubs. In this week alone, we've had the plane flying over the Auckland game saying New Zealand is yellow, see you next week. There was a couple of billboards outside the ground saying NZ is yellow with the kind of bat signal, but it was the Phoenix instead. On Thursday, Wellington announced a 4-year deal to one of their young players, Nathan Walker, highlighted as Auckland-born talent, which was a nice touch. They've also re-signed goalkeeper Josh Oluwayemi, by the way, which is a nice little parallel to Alex Paulson getting re-signed very early last season as well. And then David Dome has announced, that's the general manager of Wellington Phoenix, that more bays are opening up in Sky Stadium. Had some very strong words in some releases talking about Auckland 3.0 coming over. The yellow is the only colour they should see. Their noisy billionaire American owner trying to win buy their way towards an A-League championship. So that's all out in full force. They had Knicks players out and about in public, just handing out tickets to anyone who was wearing yellow. It's so good. And that's just this week, right? And Sasha Pisani actually did a really good piece for aleagues.com.au talking about the whole history of like a year ago and all the different jabs, including Wellington's petition to get Auckland included in the greater Wellington area, which is one that I forgot about. That was quite good as well. But my point more is they've done all this off the pitch. They've done really well. I want to see what the players get into on the pitch. I think Alex Paulson's probably going to be a bit friendly. He has some pretty good memories. But apart from that, I want to see a little bit of fire, a little bit of spice, because at the end of the day, what makes these rivalries sustainable is the competition on the pitch.
Well, by any bite on the pitch, do you mean a Luis Suarez moment, literally biting, or
that would tick? Yeah, that would work.
I think that's about as extreme as you can go, isn't it?
Probably, yeah. Absolutely.
What a way to open it up.
Yeah, it would be. All right, Christian, give me a worst case scenario.
Well, sticking on the same game, I'm going to go with the Kiwi Classico ends in a 0-0. I think we want to see goals in this game, right? It's been hyped up so much. We know that 0-0s aren't necessarily boring or dull. They can be exciting, but I really want to see entertainment and goals in the first New Zealand derby, just to really set the scene. Make the fans think, okay, we've got a real product here. Make them come back for a second time, a third time. Really keep the interest up. I think, if we get a classic in that derby, I think, it will set the scene, like I said, for, future derbies to have that same intensity and just, build the rivalry up even more.
Oh, I just want one team to win, because then that sets the stage for the second meeting of you've got to get your revenge, and it's starting out on the strong foot. I think that those derby games that end in draws, neither side is happy, and it's just everyone's a bit flat afterwards. Whereas if one team wins, they are so happy until the next meeting.
And there's a bit of banter as well, isn't there?
Yeah. I think any draw. I mean, if it's like a 4-4, okay, that's going to be an exciting game, a great game. But especially a 0-0, 1-1, that's going to be
Well, it's not Lockie's prediction for most fun game of the round, so I'm happy with the 4.
Yeah. All right, continue on, Jacob.
Well, mine is that Western United had a decent crowd, 4,500 out in Tarniet, set a record for their Tarniet games last round. My worst case scenario is that their crowds go on another downwards trend. Games at Amy against City, if they end up lower than they did last week and their crowds start going backwards, I think that's a bad thing for the club, because we saw last week, the progress that they have been making, and it's been a long time coming to even get to half of the stadium, which they've got right. It's what's in their plans. It's marked as their training pitch. To even get to this point, it's been a long process. To then get to 4,500, it's been a long process. To then have to move back to Amy for a game against City and then have another low crowd number at Amy Park. I think that would just sort of deflate the balloon a little bit and take a bit of air out of the sort of excitement that was building there for a while. And so sort of my worst case is that they start a backwards trend again in terms of their crowds and their fan engagement.
Yeah, I unfortunately think that's honestly like a likely scenario. That the game only got confirmed to go to Amy on Monday, so they've had 1 week of ticket sales leading up. It's the day before the Melbourne Cup, public holiday, so will people even be in Melbourne who are fans of these two sides, and it's so far away from Tarniet, and do you just wait for the next round when they're at home? But anyway, it's just going to be one of those games, unfortunately, until they get this stadium where security feels comfortable to have these Melbourne teams there. My worst case scenario is that Melbourne City have another team leader suspended. They've gone off the back of Jimmy Jago stamping off the back of Eli Adams and Aziz Behich stamping on the coconuts of Nikos Virgos. That was probably not the right fruit to pick. Anyway, it's a pattern now. Unfortunately, you can sometimes bin these to one-offs, but that's two senior players now that have really cost their team, both getting suspended for 2 games, and their teammates shouldn't be too happy with them because they were both very avoidable. So I don't know. I don't want to wish poor on anyone, but you're looking at guys like Andrew Naboo, who's a leader. Maybe Matt Leckie comes back. Can't keep losing players. That's what I'm afraid of. Yeah. Christian, finally, ping from distance.
Well, I got mine correct last week with Auckland beating Sydney, so I'm going to try and go 2 from 2 this week. I'm going to say Glory to defeat the Mariners. They're playing up in Gosford, so a bit of a task there, but Perth are one of those sides who they can cause one of these upsets, right? And I wouldn't even consider this as a massive upset. I know everyone here is expecting, I think, the Mariners to get the 3 points here.
Yes.
That's not to say an upset can't happen, right? I think Glory do have the weapons. We haven't quite seen it eventuate in these first 2 rounds. It's been 2 very disappointing performances, it must be said, but that can be the ingredients to turn it around for Zrilic and get a response. We wanted the response last week. We didn't get against Wellington. It might be this week. So yeah, let's hope for something.
Mine is that MacArthur are going to score 3 against the Victory. I don't know why. I've said this, but it's a ping from distance, right? It's completely
because of your Victory bias. That's why.
No, it's not even. It's just one of those ones where the Victory just seem like one of those teams that's so resolute. And MacArthur, obviously, we saw them put 6 past Perth. They had obviously only the 1 against the Jets. Which was a bit surprising for many, I think, as well. But it just, I don't know. I feel like there's the potential for something here, and a high-scoring game maybe, or maybe the Victory just rest on their laurels a bit. They had a strong performance in the derby, and they come out a bit lackluster, and MacArthur can do to them what they did to City. So I could sort of see it happening, I guess, in some universe.
Yeah, I mean, my ping from distance is in the same vein, and it's that the Wanderers laid on thick against United. The Wanderers have a front four that is very talented, and they've had 2 games to warm up, not in easy conditions either, at the derby and then away in Tarnia to Western United. So at home against an Adelaide United team who we really honestly saw a couple of fitness concerns in terms of like player cramping. It's their first game of the A-League season. I think this is potentially, maybe again, as you say, Jacob, it's an unlikely one, but that's the whole point.
Yeah.
I reckon they could potentially click into gear in a big way this week.
I think it's definitely possible, yeah.
All right, let's move on. The 2023 AFC Annual Awards took place in Seoul last Tuesday. And yes, I did get that year right, 23. But congratulations are in order to Ellie Carpenter, who was the inaugural AFC Asian International Women's Player of the Year award recipient for the 23-24 season. She won another Division 1 title in France, Christian, with Olympique Lyonnais, and was part of their run to the Champions League final, and of course, her massive role in the Tilly's Final Four World Cup campaign as well.
Yeah, great to see her get this award, because I've seen a couple of people mention on social media, the backlash she received after that performance against England. Yes, it wasn't her best showing for the Matildas, but that's no reason to cop that abuse and to, bounce back and receive this award. She had a fantastic season just coming off. Obviously, like you mentioned, making the Champions League final, another domestic crown in Lyon, absolutely killing it there. So yeah, great to see her get that accolade, and hopefully she continues on to bigger and better things.
Yeah, still so young, still so much more football to play for her as well. I'm pretty sure, if my understanding is correct, the whole International Player Award is to do with an Asia player playing not in Asia. So Son Heung-min won the corresponding men's award in that category. A couple other ones of note, Qatar's Akram Afif won the AFC Men's Player of the Year overall. He was the one that did the magic card trick celebration in the AFC Cup final.
Oh, is that why he won it? Okay.
Celebration.
And this, received no shortage of sneers as well, but Football Australia received a Gold AFC President's Recognition Award for grassroots football. which, as much as people love to give stick to the FA4, participation numbers are through the roof in terms of junior participation at the moment. And then best of all, Jacob, this is the kicker. The AFC Diamond of Asia, the most esteemed individual accolade in Asian football, was awarded to FIFA President Gianni Infantino. This is a line out of the press release. Mr. Infantino was elected as FIFA President in 2016, and under his leadership, global football continues to experience remarkable growth. Mr. Infantino has also delivered groundbreaking governance reforms, which have helped to restore confidence in the global game and the broader world of sport.
Has it restored confidence anywhere outside of the AFC boardroom? Because I think fans are more angry than they've ever been, to be honest. Look, let's not act surprised that the AFC love a bit of Infantino, considering the fact that he has pandered to just about all of their attempts to get his and FIFA's attention, obviously with the Qatar World Cup, Saudi Arabia now in line to get the next, the next available one.
Yeah.
It seems to all be playing out quite conveniently for them with him in charge. And perhaps this was just a little thing of, okay, yeah, I'll give you guys 2 World Cups against everybody's, dismay. If you just give me a little bit of recognition, thank me for it. That'd be great, guys. But yeah, pretty funny that's the case, and that they couldn't find a single person in Asian football as well to highlight and go, look at this great person that we've got here in Asia. They're like, no. We're going to go to our buddy at the top of FIFA who is Swiss and doesn't even live here. And we're going to give the award to him for the contributions he's made to Asian football. Absolute load of rubbish. I think everybody can see that it's a bunch of rubbish anyway, but it is pretty funny.
It is pretty funny. Well, while we're in Asia as well, Christian, it's worth highlighting that Kevin Muscat is just 1 match day away from claiming the Chinese Super League title with Shanghai Port. They looked to be in trouble when they slipped up for just their second loss of the season a couple of weeks ago. But after city rivals, Shanghai Shenhua dropped points at home against relegation-threatened Shenzhen. I had this down, I swear to you. Shenzhen Xinpengsheng. Port have a 1-point lead now with a match to go. So a win on the weekend against Tianjin will give Muscat another Asian League title. And of course, Shanghai Shenhua, the other competing team here. Win or loss, if they win the title or they lose it on the final day, they're straight on a plane to Gosford because they have to take on the Central Coast in midweek.
Yeah, amazing, isn't it? I mean, it's going to be fascinating, isn't it? Because Saturday night, 6:30 p.m, Shanghai Port at home to try and clinch that title. Hopefully, for Kevin Muscat's sake, he gets the job done, because there were rumours that he was potentially up for the Socceroos job, and rumours are that he turned it down. He wasn't quite ready for it, or he wanted to stick into club football. So hopefully, he treads on the right path and gets a trophy in his first season. I think it's well deserved, because they've been playing some really good attacking football, both in the Champions League, because we watched that game against the Mariners, and they were phenomenal, especially in that first half. They were really deadly, a lot of attacking quality, and you can see Muscat's ideas coming across already to that team from an attacking sense. So hopefully they get the job done on the weekend, and if so, it'll be very well deserved.
Now, this is another funny one. The Joeys, which are the under-17 men's national team, have qualified for the under-17 Asian Cup. Their final qualifying game was a 0-0 draw with Indonesia. And now I haven't been able to actually source any match footage from this, but there are several reports and a couple of clips on Twitter saying that with other results already confirmed and both sides in the game, knowing that a 0-0 draw would be enough for both to go through, the Aussies were apparently just passing the ball around the back for the final 20 minutes, Jacob, under absolutely zero pressure from the Indonesian team. Look, it's funny. People have been calling it a disgrace. You can say whatever. For me, it's a problem for the competition, not either team. If the competition is going to be structured in a way that allows teams to do this, then that's their fault. I don't think you can really have a go too much at either team for just doing what's in their best interests.
Yeah, it's like the 1982 World Cup, bit of a throwback for those people who were alive back then. But West Germany and Austria played out a very similar sort of game where the Germans scored a goal early on, realised both teams would qualify if they just stayed as they were, and so they just stopped playing football. And it's called the disgrace of Gijón, because it was just everybody was like, this is not football. What's going on? And then FIFA went, right, we can't have this again. Let's make changes to the format so that this sort of stuff can't happen again. And then they made it so that obviously all the final games of a group are played at the same time, so that you don't know in advance what the result is that you need to be able to secure your advancement into the knockout phases. But yeah, you can't be angry at the teams for it. It's not their fault that the competition structure that they've been playing in is set up in such a way that this can happen, right? I mean, you would be. Can you imagine how apoplectic with rage people would be if the under-17s had actually played a game of football, lost, and then not qualified? Like, oh, why didn't you just play for the draw? So it's like, either way, people were going to be absolutely furious with it. So, you can't be too angry at the team for just playing to their advantage and playing it safe and going, well, we don't need to actually do anything to go through, so we're just going to stick as it is. It's, it's not hate the player, it's hate the game. And I think that's definitely the case here.
So who won the World Cup in 1982, Jacob? Was it Italy? Oh, thank you. Next.
Was that the last time you were in a World Cup?
I hope you enjoyed watching it as well. Either way, look, at the result of that, both teams now qualify for the 25 Under-17 Asian Cup, which is in Saudi Arabia in April. 16 teams, of which the final 8 will qualify for the Under-17 World Cup. And of course, that's now a 48-team annual competition. And I learned today the next 5 of which are all in Qatar. So another multi-year deal for Qatar in Asian football. Good on you, Gianni.
Yeah.
The young Socceroos as well, quick note, the under-20s, they've been invited to China during the November international window on the men's side of things. So expect a couple of young A-League talents to be overseas in that period. And then Christian, looking towards December, the next Socceroos game as well, the big news is that Hervé Renard is back in charge of Saudi Arabia. That game will be in Melbourne at Amy Park, of which the current allocation is sold out already, by the way. So a few more tickets to be released closer to, but not many. Any rumours of someone else other than Renard signing for Saudi Arabia are false. Happy for you to check with Renard himself. But he's back. He's the guy that took down Argentina at the World Cup in his first game, the dreaded, in this case, new manager bounce coming against the Socceroos.
Yeah, Renard had tremendous success with Saudi Arabia, let alone getting into the World Cup and then getting that win against Argentina, but still weren't able to qualify from the group. And they've had Roberto Mancini now for I think over a year. It might be 18 months or so. That project didn't quite work out, so they sacked Mancini. Obviously won the Euros with Italy, beat England in the final of Euro 2021.
every time you get to just slag off England, you were going to take it.
I'm sorry, I had to. But no,
I kind of respect it. Like that's generational levels of hate right there.
Thank you. No, but Renard's going to surely turn the ship around, because Saudi have been disappointing in these first few games. They've only picked up 1 win, I believe, in the first 4 games. So they really need a response against Australia. And from a Socceroos point of view, you don't want to see this happening, because we always see the classic manager bounce happening. It's at Amy Park, so hopefully the Melbourne crowd can give us a boost. But at the same time, it's got to be a bit scary, because I do rate Renard as a coach. I think he sets his teams up well, really well organised. So, expect a really tough game. Not that it wasn't going to be anyway.
Yeah, absolutely. Going to be a massive game. And of course, it appears that Saudi and Australia will be the 2 teams competing for that second automatic qualification spot. So to go up against each other, a 6-pointer, as you call it, that's the cliche. Massive game. The Matildas have also wrapped up a pair of European friendlies in the last week or so, a 1-1 draw with Switzerland before a 2-1 win over Germany. Now, if you want to listen to a more in-depth breakdown of these games, I thoroughly encourage you to go over and listen to the second episode of the Dubcast, which is our new podcast dedicated explicitly to women's football, which is great. Paletti and Burke do a great job over there. But, Jacob, we can't skip over this game without talking about the goal from Kyra Cooney-Cross. Absolute worldie against Germany. Sees the keeper off her line, goes the David Beckham from range. First goal in 50th cap. Yeah. And apparently all it took was a little bit of light bullying from Harper Gorrie saying, haha, Kyra, you haven't scored a goal yet. And then she comes out with that from distance. What a goal.
What a goal. She is such a fantastic player, both obviously for the Matildas, for Arsenal as well. Just how good she is in the midfield is genuinely. I don't watch a ton of women's football, but she's always one of the ones when I do watch games, whether it is a Matildas game, whether it is an Arsenal women's game, one of the ones that sticks out as being just such a talented player. And this goal just shows exactly that, because the keeper's off her line, you just got to get over it, but to do it from the distance that she did it from, get the dip right to get it up and over and still in the net, what a fantastic hit. And it seemed like she wasn't the only one of her club team to score on the 50th cap for their national side either, with Leah Williamson also scoring for England in her 50th appearance for the national team. So maybe there's something in the water there in Arsenal now, some coaching changes, and obviously there's a lot of Australian players playing for Arsenal. So perhaps that's just good signs for the Tillies moving forwards. If they start to play well at a club level, and then they can convert it here into international football like Karakuni Cross has done. It could be huge for the Tillies, who are sort of looking to, again, it's a case of they're looking to rebound and keep building on from a disappointing Olympics campaign.
I think it shows Kyra's versatility as well, because after the match she said that I didn't really have much of a chance, in previous matches for Matildas or for Arsenal, for that matter, to go more forward in advanced role and actually take that opportunity and take shots from distance and try that attempt. And now that Samani has sort of advanced her in a more sort of central, more attacking sense, I think it's given her more freedom in that sense to try a shot. And thankfully, her pulled it off and got her maiden goal.
Well, you say thankfully pulled it off, because could you imagine all the reposts of why did she take this shot? That's rubbish.
Hey, you got to try. You got to try.
You do have to try, and it was a great hit.
Jacob, I was about to have a go at you for bringing up England way too many times in this podcast.
I was going to as well.
And then I realised what shirt I was wearing, so I thought I'd better not do that.
Also, I think Christian's mentioned England more than I have, to be fair. So.
And it's Australian football, people, it says it on the door. We'll try and stick to that more in the future. Finally, just on the Matildas coaching situation as well, of course, Ante Juric, head coach of Sydney FC in the A-League Women's competition, has been one of the names touted. I think we can comfortably say he won't be the next Matildas coach now, because he has been appointed as head coach of Sydney United 58 for their 2025 NPL men's season. So that's going to cause enough conflicts coming towards the end of the dub season. I don't think he has any room in there to be a national team boss either, so they're going to have to look for someone else. But that will do for this episode of Round Ball Australia. Jacob Stevens, thank you very much.
Thank you for having me, Lockie.
Cheers, Christian.
Thanks, Lockie.
All right, we'll be back on Tuesday for another review of your A-League competition with the Monday Night Football. Don't forget. Thank you all very much for listening. Goodbye.